So that's it. Don't listen to GCN, it's pretty disgusting, that bullshit they're pumping out. And don't slam your stem unless you're on a small frame. So hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Title of this video, why you shouldn't slam your stem. Well, I recently saw a video on GCN. I don't subscribe to GCN, but I have a little look now and again. I recently saw a video on there about slamming your stem, or how to slam your stem, and why you should slam your stem. And I have to say, it's probably the worst thing I've ever seen come out of that channel. The advice they give is absolutely disgraceful. And I think some of the presenters are pretty genuine, like, clued up guys, but why did they make that video? Well, they were paid by their sponsors, Physique. And, you know, I'm not having to go at the business model, they're not doing it for fun, they've got to, that's their business model. But to give plain, like, downright bad advice, it's not really on, really. Especially if you're new and just getting into cycling. So I'm going to try and tell you why that advice was the worst video they've ever made. So the old school train of thought about aerodynamics and slamming your stem is, if you slam your stem down with no spaces under the stem, then you'll be more aerodynamic because you've got a reduced frontal area. Now, that may be true if you ride in the breakaway or in a TT with arms locked out straight on the hoods or in the drops. But that's old school. We know the fastest aerodynamic position, on a road bike at least, is with your forearms horizontal to the oncoming wind, elbows pretty much 90 degrees. Now, slam your stem and try and do that. It's really hard to hold. You over compress the hip, you lose power, and for most people on anything above kind of a 54 centimetre frame, the saddle to bar drop, or saddle to elbow drop, is just far too low. Now look at modern TT fits. Rowan Dennis, Luke Durbridge, Chris Froome, and even amateurs like myself have adopted it. We're trying to lift the elbows and the forearms up. We're trying to reduce the saddle to bar drop, at least for the elbows. So why are we trying to do the opposite on the road bike? Well, that's why I'm saying it's bad advice. Actually, on the road bike, if you're doing an individual time trial and you're not allowed to use a TT bike, I'd be saying to most people, get the bars up as high as possible. Because while slamming the stem may reduce the frontal area a little bit if your arms are locked out straight in the drops or on the hoods, it doesn't suit well to the horizontal forearm position or arms on the tops of the bars, because it's just too low and it over compresses the hip. So what you should be doing is trying to mimic the TT position on the road bike. And actually, if you think about it in terms of engineering, the road bike position is completely flawed because it doesn't support the fastest known position. So the fastest known position is that, and actually that's really bad because my forearms aren't supported, I've got no control of the brakes or the gears really in this position, and it's not that sustainable. If you're in a 20-minute solo breakaway, trying to do that for 20 minutes is really difficult. And actually, if you're thinking about it, the whole front end of the road bike and the handlebars needs a redesign because it doesn't support the fastest known position. That's why I prefer riding the TT bike over the road bike, because that position is the fastest and it is supported by the equipment, it's supported by the elbow cups and the extensions. So contrary to the old school bullshit about slamming the stem, I would say for most riders on a size like 56 and above, where the saddle to bar drop is quite extreme anyway, slamming the stem is a bad idea. Yes, it might get you lower in this position, but this is not the fastest position, because these things, the forearms, present a big load of drag. They're basically cylinders. We need to cancel them out. And even in this position with quite a lot of spacers, I feel like this is too low, right in this position. And if I was to do a TT on this bike, I'd probably flip the stem and try and get the bars even higher. So all I can say is, if you're quite a tall rider, if you ride a frame above 56, really don't slam your stem, or very carefully think twice about it. If you're riding a 48, 50 or 52, you're lucky you can slam the stem because your saddle to bar drop won't be big anyway. So if you look on really small frames, you can slam the stem and almost the bars will remain level with the saddle. So if you're tall, you ride a bike above 56, slamming the stem 9 times out of 10 is a bad idea. Now, going back to the old school train of thought about slamming the stem, it might be better if you're riding like arms straight or in the drops. But like I said, mimicking the TT position, the modern TT positions with the high hands and the high elbows, not only reduces frontal area, but it reduces the really other important term in the equation, which is coefficient of drag, or CD, the CD part of CDA. And arguably you can reduce that more than you can reduce A by mimicking the TT position with the high elbows and high hands. Because what you're doing is you're closing off this big chest cavity. By slamming the stem and forcing your arms down low, like this, you're leaving that big chest cavity open. It's acting as a big air scoop to capture all the wind. If you can adopt the high hand position and get your head as close to your hands as possible, you close off that frontal area. And also by doing that reduces the coefficient of drag, because you turn the front of your body into basically a nose cone. So you make your whole shape more slippery as well as making it smaller. And you can only do that by lifting the elbows, because then your head can sink down to your hands naturally rather than forcing it down if it's too low. You won't be able to get it down if it's too low. That's why the old school kind of triathlon TT positions really suffer now, because they're too low at the front. And if you look at any modern TT specialist, they've got high elbows, high hands, and they relax into it. And it leaves the hip open much wide. It leaves the hip open in a much wider angle. And frankly, the advice that GCN are pumping out from Physique is absolutely diabolical. And they even go as far as to say in the advert, this is a saddle for riding in a compromised position, or something like that. It's appalling. They admit it's a terrible position, and they're saying the saddle allows you to cope with the discomfort. I mean, I've never liked Physique because I find their marketing baffling, but bloody hell, what a load of bullshit. So if you're on your road bike and you're doing like a TT and it's flat, try lifting the bars up as high as you can, even flipping the stem, and you'll be amazed at how comfortable it is to get your head much lower to your hands. I'm going to explain what I mean by putting a couple of yoga blocks on the bars here. Right, obviously not going to ride with these in a TT, but if I could lift the bars up another couple of inches, place my arms on top of the bars like that, either forearms on top of the bars, which is arguably dangerous, or forearms level with hands on the hoods, look how much closer I can get my head into my arms, and I'm not forcing it. My hip stays pretty open, my knees aren't banging my chest like they would be if I'd slammed the stem. And actually, lifting the stem for most riders, especially if you're tall, it's going to be faster. So that's it. Don't listen to GCN, it's pretty disgusting, that bullshit they're pumping out. And don't slam your stem unless you're on a small frame. The only caveat I can think of is that a road bike is such a versatile machine. Not like a TT bike, it doesn't have to just go fast on the flat. The only scenario where I do like a slam stem is on long descents, where I want to get my centre of gravity low for tight, maybe hairpins or switchbacks like alpine descents. Because on the descents I always ride in the drops with the brakes covered. And I don't know about you, if you're in a really upright position on descent, it doesn't feel stable, it doesn't feel safe. I like to get as low at the front as possible on a descent, but that's the only caveat and the only time where I'd like a slam stem. But if I'm racing a flat race or a TT on a road bike, what I'd actually do is lift the bars and maybe push them a little bit further away, so that position becomes more comfortable. See, when I say further away also, look what happens to my hands when I adopt that TT position. Look at my wrist position in the x-axis. What happens to it? It goes quite far forward. But I want to be higher. So if I'm doing an ITT on a road bike, put the bars further away on the longer stem and lift them way up to mimic that TT position. That's all from me. I just wanted to say, if you know anyone that's getting into cycling, don't show them that video from GCN, it's absolute bullshit. Cheers.